Let everybody in first.
No, not yet. Let anyone in.
Hmm.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody.
Hmm.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate everyone joining. Um, I gotta change the format here.
There we go. Now we can see you.
We were driving blind there for a second. Appreciate you
Hi, Susan.
joining, and
Hi,
we are
Susan.
recording, just so everyone knows. If for some reason you don't want this shared in the future, let us know, but we might share it if you're comfortable. Either way. Some new faces from that we haven't had in our community meetings. Welcome. Just wanted to creatively kind of connect today and talk about really whatever comes up. Pretty open forum. Um, we're looking forward to be doing a little 4-week adventure together and excited to share about that if anybody's curious. An online class that we'll be doing soon, and um, our combination of what we offer will be a little different than what each of us offers on our own. So be a cool exploration of working with memories because we share so many memories, opportunity to reflect on the different way people interpret things or even entirely different stories that come out of memories where we had a different experience altogether or a different, yeah, interpretation. And let a few more people in.
Hmm.
All right, welcome people. Hello, hello. Definitely want to drop in, I think, a little bit before we get into the conversations in depth, but I think we'll tap into the field, the collective field here, and I'll go ahead and take us into the earth a little bit. Um, if you feel
Hmm.
want to get comfortable, just relax into your breath, and we're out here in the heat and hiding in the shade, really enjoying the mother today. The wind is with us. Uh, and the sprinkler's going, so it's kind of psychedelic. But yeah, water and air and sun and earth. So yeah, if you feel called just to drop in, you can close your eyes and breathe in any way you feel called. Tap into your body and what it wants to do. Maybe relax your shoulders or sit a little deeper into your sit bone. We're going to place our awareness below our body into the earth and just really feel what is beneath us. As we continue to breathe, however we feel called, we can elongate the breath. We can breathe into the earth through the root, or we could breathe out through the crown. Get creative. Allow yourself to drop in just to the incredible opportunity to inhale life force and to exhale whatever wants to release or come off or be shown. But by placing our awareness deep into the mother, we can feel an anchoring if we so choose. There are roots below you traveling that you can connect to with your roots. You can place your luminous fibers down below into the stone and into the soil, into the clay, into the mud. The clay of this earth is the mud of our bodies, or the mud of this earth is the clay of our bodies. We are very much a connection, an extension of the mother, and we can return to her, dropping our awareness deeper and deeper in, really allowing ourselves to feel how strong and rooted she is. You can allow the mother to lend her roots up your legs, up your body, grab your hips, and hold your torso in that stillness, feeling the roots that are crisscrossing beneath you as your roots extend deeper and deeper, anchoring into the stone, allowing yourself to be held by this incredible, still, stable structure, this physical world. We can open our crown to receive the light, the sun, the consciousness of the light to pour in from above and really illuminate this experience. These two incredible beings can help us to feel our feelings, to honor this moment. The sun can just pour in, can just open to it and allow it to illuminate the cells, your organs. Allow it to come in through the crown and start to descend and drop into your throat. You can drop your jaw and take a deep breath. Continue with your breathing. You might be called to yawn or make sound on your exhale. You might be called to move or shake or release at any point. You're rooted, you're anchored to the mother, allowing the sun to illuminate and bring consciousness to all parts of your being. In front of you, on each side and behind you, bringing awareness to the back side of your neck and your shoulders and your back, allowing the sun to reach every area of your body and your energy body. And continuing to place our awareness deep in the earth, bringing attention to our feet and our ankles and our legs in gratitude for these incredible vessels that we operate. Gratitude for the temple, which is our body, which is our home, what we get to learn about, experience, the physical world. Gratitude for our knees that are flexible at times, for our hips and our legs and our hips and our belly. Allow the earth energy to climb through your feet, up into your knees, through your legs, up to your hips, into your belly. Allow the sun to enter in through the crown and come downward, meet the earth. Maybe the most tender place in our being, our belly, where we feel and process so many feelings. Allowing the sunlight to help us, to hold space for us, to feel energetically supported, allowing that love in, receiving that unique guidance and consciousness, opening our ears, allowing our nose, our mouth, our throat. Allow the light to reach these places and allow them to open if you feel comfortable. Direct your breath into different parts of your body along with the sunlight, allowing the sun and your breath to go into your chest and to release. And on your exhale, you can direct the feelings that you want into the world around you, or you can let go of anything that wants to purge. You may be called to cry. You may be called to scream. We just want to eventually learn to feel all the feelings that are available, slowly making room for the earth and the sun to hold space for this alchemical process, tapping deeper into our feelings and into our knowing, learning to say no and learning to say yes, learning to anchor really strongly to the earth, feeling your energetic foundation, allowing your body to intuit and understand how to stabilize your structure, your energy system, and how to repair your being. And the mother will show us these things when we're ready in our own way. It's through our return to our creativity and our imagination, the memories of childhood, or feelings that have moved through our chakra system. Just allowing all of the feelings that want to be present to surface. We're working with memory, we're working with the earth and the sun. Continue with your breathing and allow your belly to get really full on your inhale. If you're called to release that with your exhale, you can extend the exhale. Keep breathing out till there's nothing, and then hold. And allow yourself to spiral your breath upward through your root as you draw in all the way up to the crown. And you can let that go and unspiral back down to the root and out into the mother, or however creatively you want to express your release of your exhale. And placing your awareness deep in the earth once again, allowing the roots to connect with all the roots beneath you, with the stone, with the moist, with the coolness, the powerful ground, allowing the earth to know you through your unique energy as you extend yourself downward. Allow her to hold you and receive you and support you, and just receiving the sunlight through the crown as it continues to surround our luminosity, our cocoon, our ball of light, raising the earth energy up all the way to the peak of the crown and then allowing the sunlight to encapsulate that, dropping like honey and amber liquid all around, surrounding you, descending slowly, letting go of anything that wants to fall off. The mother will receive and take and transmute. You can stomp, you can release, and you can breathe it out. Just receive this incredible energy all around you and within you. And in gratitude, you can say thank you to the mother and to the sun. And return back into this Zoom call and this session slowly as you feel called. And open your eyes when you're ready and look around you. maybe see things in a new way. Looking at the grass here. Appreciate you being here and tapping into the field with us. Really thankful for all the new people that are coming into our lives and really appreciate this opportunity to hold space for conversations and uh, really want to open that up. However, if anyone feels called to ask anything, doesn't have to be specific to memory or reflection, but we'd love to hear from you. That's the point of holding space, is that if and when people feel comfortable, we can definitely cover the time if you don't feel comfortable, but we want to offer that as a way to begin. We're gonna be, but we haven't heard from Rachel either, so do you feel called to say something first?
Uh, well, yeah, if you've been with us, you know, but I just want to reiterate for people that are new that any guidance that Joel and I have just really is rooted in our own experience and a collection of different trainings we've had. But the intent of how this came to be was really people were just asking to hear more of our stories, and that kind of just started to help. And um,
Mm.
so here we find ourselves kind of in these roles, but not as really um, mm, the guidance just stems from the desire to help anyone find their own guidance if what we share is supportive. That's where it's coming from. So we never intend to or push past your wisdom. And this is definitely a co creative, collective space. The community meetings, especially, we learn from all of you. And every time, every client, every community meeting, every course that we do, it comes from this place. And I just always like to bring that up first, um, just as a reminder for us all, and just to let people that are new know that that's kind of how this evolved.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just intuitive field, and we'd love to support people discovering how unique they are. We were followers and got caught up in following and handed our power over to people a lot and learned, got pretty beat up. So really thankful to not be so beat up. We're still pretty beat up. And I think that's what makes this unique, is not, we're not trying to pretend that we're not. It's a pretty vulnerable thing to do. But that's, I think, where the freedom comes too, is in that uh willingness to share the process. And so a lot of our closest, my closest friends have asked about, like, I really like it when you guys share your story. And so we've been kind of keeping that awareness around that. So that's what this course is about, is sharing more of our story, because it kind of allows you to go into it, and it helps us to lift there's a whole benefit to all of us doing it together. We also do it on our own. Obviously, we talk a lot and process a lot because we have a lot happen, and we're finding new ways to deal with all of this, and we're lucky to find support. And we want to make sure you guys know that there is support, because we were scrambling to find it for a
Mm.
long time, and now that we have solid support, we're just really, it's like, okay, there are people that have gained skill sets in this world, and we want you to know about it, because we're gaining those skill sets. There's people that are more skilled than us. That doesn't mean they're above us, right? Nobody's above or below. They've gained a skill set that we're utilizing. That doesn't mean they've gained the totality of their being, and these are people that all have their own areas in which they're undeveloped too. We couldn't possibly all cover the whole gamut. And that's the benefit of learning. The world is reflecting to us areas of our that we've undeveloped all the time as a reflection so that we can be, I mean, I just see the world as, rather than a place where people should be any different than they are. Every person is a messenger. Every person's story was like an incredible gift. And I know that sounds and can sound unsympathetic to how much struggle people have. But when we come out of victim consciousness, there's a window of opportunity that becomes accessible even when it seems impossible. And so this is like a dream in which I feel there are ways to hack the dream in a sense. And even the people, the shadow teachers we had were really powerful, gifted beings that taught us really incredible things, and seeing up close how lost they got in attempting to discover their power. So, these are humbling things to have been in the presence of. And
Mm. Yeah, one thing about that as well, a lot of there's a lot of trends in the spiritual movements that we find ourselves in today. And one I find being like, come out of your victim. And I feel like a lot of the teachers, the powerful Native American shamans, the sorcerers, a lot of them, as powerful as they were, I believe came into misuse of that power due to not acknowledging their victim. So I feel like there's uh, uh, always a time, not just a time, but always a time to allow the victim to speak. So releasing victimhood is just, I just kind of want to clarify. There's a little bit of discerning there, to me, where um, victimhood is very much when we're living from, and that trauma is triggered, and the victim is pushing and pulling to try and get out of pain, and utilizing the things that worked in that loop, that original trauma loop that happened when our nervous system was overwhelmed, and we found brilliant ways to cope with that situation. And those are typically the loops that we get caught in. So it's definitely not pushing, that system, just denying it all away, but allowing space in our lives to be curious about, what that is, and be with our victim, which is typically our child, that is feeling hurt, scared, lost, all these things. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that because it's such a poignant part of what I eventually noticed. Which one of the Native American shaman was the one that I used to just uh, call little Johnny boy, or um, because as powerful and puffed up and extremely skillful, I just, all I could see was this little hurt child that was just running everything. So yeah,
mm,
yeah.
absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really cool to clarify that because we don't want to skip ahead or pretend that we're uh or a lot of what we witnessed was people trying to override and pretend that they had reached a certain state of freedom that they weren't being honest with themselves. And we all do that to a degree, and having these reflections in our life are really helpful. Natalia, welcome. Love to hear from you.
Um, Thank you for saying that about victim because I have really struggled with this the whole way through. Um, and I before living on this farm where I am now, I was living in this really enlightened community and don't be a victim, never, da da da. And I just sweep it away, even though everything I was trying to work with from my whole life was like, and I'd be like, well, what is victim? Isn't that somebody that experiences something or a group of experiences that they don't want, that they didn't feel like they asked for, they don't want anything to do with, and yet there it all came anyway. So I was always trying to be like, don't be a victim, don't be a victim. Oh, I'm, just hyper vigilant about this victim thing where instead of, I really like what you just said, Rachel, about, there's a time to acknowledge that. And it is probably the little child part that um, just would like some, like not to dwell there or to, be, like woundology, like Carolyn Mays talks about, like, all my wounds, everyone needs to be aware of all my wounds, that whole thing. But but to to somehow work with this to where it's like all this pain and trauma, and for me now, of course, at this stage, the pain levels physically even that are probably emotionally based, of course, are just I don't have very much tolerance for it as I used to where I just get really like, and that's become an issue. And then again, I'm back into my victim. So I just appreciate the acknowledgement that there is some, like even felt like just uh, being in a body itself was I was a victim of. Like, how did I get into this thing? I don't even want to be in this form. I don't. This is stupid. So thanks for letting there be some opening for working with that victim thing. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying all that. And I feel like you're bringing up a really good piece here, which is a lot of the spiritual communities, we get so I feel like we get so worked up about I mean, obviously, the truth of what's happened, this old system, the patriarch, and everything, and it's part of our like waking up to there's something new and different, and that can also moving into another new system that we call the truth can really kind of hinder us and like, well, now we know about victimhood and how it's blocking us and our chakras, and we're gonna just you know push that under into the rug, and that's just part of the old system. Like that's not, a lot of the new systems are very reflective of the old system and how it used to work. So like the depth of the feminine is very much just receptivity and allowing and being with, and there can be just a lot of shame and guilt in spiritual communities around like what we're actually experiencing, because we're love and lighting it up here and we just want to feel good and we just be happy, so a lot of the other stuff gets stuffed. And that's actually the thing to me, in my experience, that completely turned everything around, which was more kind of the tantric roomy, philosophies, which I don't really subscribe to any specific philosophy, but and I don't believe in not having preferences, because I feel like healthy judgment really guides us to what we do love and what we do desire. But when we can just allow so much more in our life to happen, like symptoms of our physicality and the uncomfortable and the pain, because it has so much to tell us. But we're usually like, ouch, ugh, how can I, even stretching before I got on the call, it was like, oh, this thing that I've been working towards, you know, if I stretch and keep stretching, I can progress and maybe get rid of the pain. And I just realized that whole thing was all there in the middle of my stretch. And I'm like, okay, how can, like, I just backed up just a little bit, took a little bit off of the stretch and was like, okay, you're definitely push pulling this pain in your body. Like, can we release progression, you know, productivity, you know, where's the goal here? Like, release the goal. And then I could just feel this part that holds all this pain start to, like, energetically kind of reconfigure in my body. And I was like, whoa, there's a lot going on there. I don't know if it's going to release pain. I don't know what it's actually doing. It's this mystery, but it felt good to just allow it to do something rather than me project onto it what I feel it should be doing. That's just, yeah, an example there. I know I went off a little bit, but yeah.
It's really helpful, actually. It's listening rather than thinking. Some can be the biggest breakthrough, because in each moment we might be called to do something, and so a lot of people I notice try to be disciplined and force, and there's a way, I think, to find a more natural, gravitate toward a listening that's more feminine, but the masculine structure can happen through more like where you're flexible, you've created, and your body falls in love with certain activities, and you allow that love to grow, and so you really have a healthy relationship with the things that make you feel good. Because the what I see with a lot of people is they don't love themselves unless they look a certain way, because they've done all the things to make themselves believe that they have love for themselves. And so it's a hard thing to witness, because maybe the ego death journeys and the authenticity that is needed is through the wounds and the aging and the coming to terms with and being with what the contract is currently offering. And we can spend our whole life trying to kind of cover up our wounds rather than be with them. So the listening seems like a more magical way of being in this realm, and but it doesn't make it easy to make that adjustment, to go from thinking to feeling. So we want to honor how challenging that process is. I was really fortunate to learn in the construction world how to use it like a dream. And that was a perfect place for that process, because it's got a lot of dynamics that just served as a perfect obstacle course for that concept. And I believe that exists everywhere. And so that's why we talk about these ideas, because it's called the difference between living in, well, there's this realm of reason in which our assemblage point, according to Toltecs, is typically utilizing the world of reason. But there's a more efficient way in which our perception can it can still function in reason, but it also has access to silent knowledge, and it's a place where you don't have to rely on memory in the same way. So since we're talking about memory, there's a magical aspect to memory, and a lot of people talk about Akashic records and different things of this nature. Shamans just say it's all stored in the different positions of the assemblage point. And when your assemblage point can move again, because you've discovered that, then you start to get curious about what you could, how to sort of enjoy it so that it's not overwhelming. And it's a dance, but it's a beautiful one that's guided, because it's essentially just our longing to understand our perceptual possibilities it's a very pure, beautiful thing. And so it's very much a path of heart to kind of explore where your chains are, because we're chained essentially to this world, which is great. This is our, everything's here to teach us. shamans get curious about what would happen if I try to go into these other layers of the onion. And then they realize it's very ungrounding. So they have to learn to take really, really good care of themselves. Otherwise, it would be dysregulating. And then they discover, oh, there's these movements, there's these ways of being that have a history that I can borrow this energy from. And some people go in that direction, or they become very, very focused on facing fear in physical worlds as a means to free themselves from what's possible. There's a lot of ways to do it. And we're in a time where those energetic systems that people have discovered are becoming more relatable. And it doesn't have to be fear-based. We went through a system that was all fear-based, and it created spiritual fear, it created a lot of dysregulation. We thought it was necessary because the Castaneda books make it seem like it's kind of necessary. But especially in the time we're in, it's not at all. In fact, it's just that's the healing that's happening. It doesn't mean you won't experience fear, but it doesn't have to be done from a realm of masculine pressures and discipline and overriding feelings. The most courageous people will feel that not only their own wound, but be able to digest the collective wounding by being a witness to the spirits of trauma without being at odds with them, because really all this stuff that we think is like bad or Satan or whatever, it's all just, we're dealing with forces that have consciousness that are playing out storylines based on wounding and projections. Just because they're in different dimensions and are affecting our dimensions doesn't mean that they're more evolved than us. We just are in the crosshairs of so many different things if we give our attention to it. And shamans found a way to stop giving their attention to these things. But at the same time, a lot of the shamans that were there, they fell asleep during the times in which so much was revealed because they weren't paying attention to this world at all. And so that was a strange thing to witness, is they're not being able to be like, then they started defending the world, stories of the world, instead of being open and curious. And that's what's been so tragic for me, is that all these powerful psychic, powerful people ended up becoming those areas in which they were undeveloped became a very weak point and their ego wouldn't be able to admit to anything, so they're still upholding these storylines, and just like I do, but it definitely lost a lot of allies, and at the same time, that's what was the best gift ever, was now that I got given that glimpse from a distance, I realized that I was aligned with people that I did not want to be aligned with. And they had a very unique, they got caught up in something that I don't want to continue in the Toltec world.
Limiting.
Yeah, it was very limiting, very, yeah. Anyways, it's a strange byproduct. I find it myself in a strange position as somebody who got to know these people and all of how gifted they were and the ways that they were. But yeah, thank you so much for letting me ramble on that, and welcome Sarah and Patty.
Hey.
Hey. Oh, I'm so glad we were able to hop on here with you guys today. We're actually in a backyard, and Patty's sister is going to be coming home soon, so we might have to jump off, but yeah, we just wanted to say hi, and yeah, I love what you guys are talking about. And I recently went and had a soul retrieval done, and Rachel was there and Patty was there, and talking about like memory, and just like the integration has been really interesting since. And I kind of had these like expectations or like hopes for myself of like, oh, kind of how I had no idea. I'd hardly even heard about this until recently, but I thought I would be more like alleviated of things, and like these patterns would kind of fall away, and it's interesting because during like the aftermath of it all, all the stuff that like patterns in my life that I'd kind of wanted, that have been bothering me for a really long time, and just this like looping that I kind of fall into, and things I do to kind of cope with like intensity, because the intensity's been pretty strong lately. And it was like right after the soul retrieval, I like went into that pattern almost like, and it wasn't like, to a lot of people, they probably would have been like, what do you mean? Like, it's not an issue. But for me, it was just an annoyance more so. And so these things came up really strong, and like because I was having a lot of memories come up from childhood and things, and it was beautiful. Like, it was a beautiful experience to kind of sit with in meditation after, and kind of go on my own sort of journey with like what just happened, like and just really feeling into it all. And I would have these like beautiful memories come up from childhood that I had not even remembered before, and like, and the feelings would come with that, and it was really amazing. So I was kind of like enjoying that. But then yeah, just stuff that like, just this like old patterning anyway. So something happened in the forest the other day that I just wanted to kind of share, because it's happened to me before, is like when I was in a really intense place in my life, and it was a pretty shadowy time. And I don't want to use the word like attacked, because I don't really know if this was like an attack, but there's been these like synchronicities with owls that are attached to really strong memories for me. And, you know, we're having this full moon right now, and I decided to go into the forest and just, I don't know, do some sun gazing and some movements, and just like be alone. And it's right on like the borderland of the US and Canada here. And so I was doing that, and I ended up having this owl swoop down and like hit me in the back of the head as I like right after the sun had set. And I was feeling really good, and somebody had just gone down the path before me. And then I start walking down, and I get knocked by something, and I fall forward, and I look up behind, and it's this owl, and it was making this weird sound I've never heard an owl make before. And it was like 8 years ago, the same thing happened, but the owl before had like cut my head and knocked me to the ground. And I was with a friend at the time. And so we ran out of the forest screaming then. So this time when it happened, I'm just like, what is going on? And we had ran into somebody in the forest a few months back, who was pointing out an owl to us in the trees. And I was like, I kind of shared with him my experience with them. And he's like, oh yeah, that's how they say hello. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's kind of intense. But and then so yes, this happened like 2 nights ago. And then we were just outside doing some landscaping yesterday, and these 2 ladies walked by, and so they were warning us about owls with the dogs. And I was like, yeah. And so I ended up telling her, and she's like, yeah, well, you know, when you see people walking with umbrellas lately, it's because they're protecting themselves. And I was like, oh, I thought that was because they were afraid of the sun. But she's like, no, a lot of them are just because it's just that time. So I'm like, what? Because I was really freaked out, and I kind of ran out of the forest and was really upset, like how I've gotten with these intense experiences I've had with animals or insects, where I'm like, it feels like a bad omen, or there's that, like, what does this mean? And I can put all this meaning on it. And then I started laughing in the forest, because I'm like, okay, this has happened twice. Like, maybe it is just saying hello. Maybe it's, you know, so I'm still kind of just like feeling into all that. And then we had this full moon, and it's like, just, I mean, there's like low flying helicopters, gunshots, sirens, coyotes howling everywhere. We're like, it is full on. It's like an orchestra of like, we're just sitting here laughing, like, oh, we're like, we don't even want to go to the store, and like, don't even want to go out in public. But yeah, the memories that are coming up, and just how memories can come with such beautiful feelings too. Like, it can be an adventure and a journey. And then it can also be like, wow, there's some things that I really, and my soul has been longing to work on, that has got my attention. And then, you know, when it kind of rises, and it's like I'm in that pattern so much that it feels so gross that I'm like, okay, I'm done. And then now it's just all kind of melted away, and I'm like, okay, like there's this clarity that's come in. There's this sort of, I mean, it's intense, but there's also just like around my own stuff has gotten really clear. And I like, it feels like it just got, so maybe sometimes this like looping back in, and these patterns that, like, you know, being in groups that I followed before, and following all kinds of people, there was all this strictness around, like, you can't do this if you want to evolve, you can't do that. And at full moons, you should do this, or you should be fasting, or whatever. And I'm like, you know what, the full moon comes, that's when I kind of I'm eating all the things. I want to smoke weed more. I'm like, and it's like, maybe that is part of the evolution, is like going into that stuff at certain times. Like I can quit doing things and do them at the same time. I've realized, like, I don't, like, nobody needs to tell me like how to do this. And so much shame has fallen away where I'm just like, screw it. Anyway, I just wanted to hop in and share that. Sorry for my ramble, but it's a really fun, interesting, intense time right now, and really glad to be on here with you all. And yeah, thanks. I don't know if you want to say anything.
Wow.
Sarah.
And our dog has a lot of anxiety, so she's jumping from like one to the other because these gunshots going off or fireworks or whatever is going on. Like the dogs are really feeling it too. So
Yeah.
There's
Thank you.
a lot of activity right now for a lot of people, a lot of messages, and yeah, it's interesting how it just spreads, like the ripples of everything. We're all so connected. So
Our smoke alarms all went off this morning all at once. They're just chirping, and yeah, it's been a whole long list of wow, this full moon. Yeah, I feel pretty wiped out actually today from it all. And thank you for bringing it into the community meeting. I wanted to start with that because I was like, shit. Okay, here we go. Another loop, another round of a full moon, which can be, right, like so expansive or so contractive or so everything. And gosh, that brings us back to preference. I'd love the full moon to be expansive and loving and grounding and powerful in those ways, but my gosh, a lot of them are powerful in all the other ways that kind of kick your ass. And whoa, I mean, owl medicine, and we could talk shamanically about that, and I'm sure a lot of you here could share, and please feel free to. That's a big one, and I look forward to processing more of that with you, Sarah. And it just, to me, it just brings up so many things: the full moon, the owls, because owls can be seen as like such a dark, in certain traditions. So we look at all these cultures around the world, and we look at belief systems. And what you're bringing up, Sarah, it's like, okay, I used to believe this. And when I say, like, there's an invitation to everything to back away from preference, it's in that experience, what I mean is moving from belief system, whatever it is, to sensation in the body. And when we move into sensation, whether those are feel-good sensations or right, whatever sensations those are, when we make room for them, I just feel like riding any sort of wave that we're experiencing collectively, personally, is so much more gentle, because these sensations and feelings move. But when we attach belief system, oh my God, this is what's happening. It can amplify and kind of can bring in more, even if it's, owls, entities, we tend to have really strong belief systems. And it's not that those are bad, but to be able to be curious about what yours are in any given like situation and experience can really help bring in more consciousness. Curiosity brings that consciousness. And a lot of times when we give room for it, it's making room for more questions instead of answers. And that like changed my life. I have to say, that's one of my great tools in my toolkit. Yeah, there's a lot to say about that, but I would love to hear. Oh, where did Jamie? Hi. Yeah. If you want to jump in, it's good to see you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be on the community call. I've been part of some of Joel's courses recently, which have been really good. Yeah, thanks for all the sharing. Yeah, for me, in terms of memories, I've been recently working with sort of my childhood memories around 5 or 6 years old. And I shared with the group some trauma that's come up, which I've only just found out about in the last couple of months, but that I've been dealing with on an energetic level throughout my life. But the memories that I've been trying to get a better connection to are the memories that I had when I was a child, where I was lying in bed and I would look into the darkness, and through intent and some form of gazing that I used, I would suddenly see all these rainbow colored dots, and then it would turn into like a morph, like a sea of rainbow colored energy. And ever since I've had this memory come back to me, I've really wanted to reconnect with that ability. But it's been really difficult because I have the memory and the space, the location. I'm able to sort of scan it, but it's still void of like a feeling. There's still some detachment there. And the other memory that came up around it was that during that time, if it was nighttime, I used to jump from the end of my bed to the door because I thought that there was a monster underneath my bed. And so, yeah, reflecting, and wondering whether there was something there, and, potentially related to the trauma that I went through. And yeah, so just kind of unpacking that. But also, when Rachel was talking about the victim consciousness, and how that can be confused a little bit these days, and how at times we do need to go into our victim, and just realizing, as someone who's 39 and only just finding out about the sexual trauma that happened when I was 5 years old and still not having any memory of it, realizing that I've never been able to acknowledge that victim throughout my life and throughout my struggles, and also realizing that I also don't know how to do that fully, because I've lived a life where I've had to be very strong and self-sufficient. And although I have a really good connection to my emotions, and I can go into my sadness and everything really easily, yeah, there's still a part of myself that's not able to fully embrace that victim, I guess. So yeah, just trying to piece, what part of that process needs to happen for me to unlock this, the positive memories I guess I have from that period. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Oh, brother.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's incredible. Do you feel called to I mean, it's all the timing there's a reason for timing. And so it's just, you're on that path, and you're gonna be called to stick with it, to feel more and more. It's an unraveling of, it's not a comfortable transition. It wouldn't want to be done overnight or expedited on any level. So, I mean, the my biggest breakthroughs happened when I gained access to memories I wasn't trying to gain access to. Sometimes when we're trying or have a specific task that we're attempting, there seems to be an aspect to it that's untouchable. And so, like a lot of castanedated people try to find their hands, they spend their whole life trying to figure out these dreaming tricks, and they miss out on all the different things that spirit's showing them because they had an agenda. So your youthful energy will return to you magically, and when you're able to I mean, I can't relate and not, or maybe I can, I don't know. I may have a similar story and I haven't discovered, but it's every person that I've discovered or met seems to have these dynamics in which in this world they are, as little children, opened up in a variety of ways. And there seems to be gifts that come with having been hurt and abused. There seems to be like this realm, forces rise to meet each other, and these stories they're rich and magical, even though they're terrifying and beautiful. So your capacity to feel will intensify. You'll gain more and more trust in the process, and it's will more and more will be shown. And then the recapitulation is like the gauge. So rather than focus on trying to get to memories from the past, you can build up the muscle, create this energetic muscle that happens from working on your most recent memories. And then you'll be taken into your past really strongly, having kind of gained experience with the type of with the very and so that's what we'll be working on in our class, is different ways to recapitulate stuff, because there's so many ways to go into it. So
yeah, I've found the other way that's been quite effective is a while ago I got given some old photographs from my parents.
wow.
And there was one photograph in there where I'm not quite sure, I was probably a little bit older, maybe 7, and I was there with my little brother, and I think we just started doing karate or something like that. And I had this strong emotion when I saw the picture, and I kind of went through some grief stuff, and then I just looked at it and I realized my little brother was standing there in this sort of karate stance, and he was looking really strong and his eyes are really clear. But for me, I had this weird stance where it was almost like covering my gap with one hand, and then I had sort of my other hand down, and you could see how tired I was around my eyes, and I had this sort of the sadness that I'd never seen before in the photo. So I'd seen this photo before, but I hadn't looked at it honestly. Like I'd looked at it in a way like, oh great, that's me and my little brother. And so I found after connecting with that, I had this weird grief process where there was all this intense kind of energy around my heart. That kind of cold, it's not cold, it's not hot, but it's just sort of energy moving. And then something sort of came up kind of out of my throat. So I found that was like a good avenue, another avenue to take. That there wasn't so much the intense kind of recapitulation. But I hear what you're saying about being more of a reference, in terms of how deep you can go with those older memories, in terms of, how you're developing. The one other thing I'd say is I think part of the purpose of maybe it coming at this time is my ability to talk about it, because in the past I don't think I would have been able to communicate and share. And even just the other day, I had another person, one of my really good friends, who has a jiu-jitsu dojo here, and I shared it with him, and he shared with me like his own experience, and he'd gone through a similar thing. And and so just more and more, it's like I'm seeing how it's not this thing that just happened to me and a couple of random people. It's like this part of humanity, and becoming close to that and being willing to feel and work through it. It just kind of is opening up like another layer of humanity, and it's quite beautiful. It's not, I'm not feeling trauma in a sense, I feel sadness, but I don't feel that trauma in the sense. I'm feeling a more open, beautiful understanding of humanity. Yeah. So thank you.
Wow, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie, for sharing all that. It's really really touching to hear, and I think a really good reminder too that we all have a unique process with our life experiences, our traumas, and it can look really different from each person and at different time in that journey. And it's like that you're bringing such beautiful consciousness to, or it feels like you're in that stage where you've brought consciousness to your victim, like you're working together, and that's allowing the grief to be felt. And yeah, I mean, something to look forward to is like the PTG, it can be called, which I've mentioned before. It's the post-traumatic gold or growth. And like what Joel was saying, and that's not something we feel right away when we are experiencing remembering. But it is something that we can look forward to in moments, as we grow with our remembering. And for me personally, when you were speaking the first time, the word that came through was elusive, like how elusive memories can be. And then when we start to remember something, but it's only just this cracked open just a little bit, it's easy to have the desire to want to know. Like, I think it's very natural to want to know everything or what did happen to me. And, um, and like Joel was saying, yeah, there is some cool tricks with recapitulation that when we can kind of make peace with, okay, well, that's very elusive right now. This is out of reach, and it's probably out of reach for a great reason, as far as like energy management and taking in pieces at a time. So what's happening around that is probably perfect for your system. Like your system may know exactly what you need in this scenario. And yeah, and then also the concept around this type of recapitulation where we go over here away from it and give it some room. And then as we're working with these other memories, or maybe even, you know, anything else like that's feels good to our system, I'm gonna earth and walk in the forest barefoot for a week or whatever for today. You know, how the different types of things can then all of a sudden have a domino effect, and one memory opens up another, and pretty soon, you know, kind of like that muscle or that resiliency has grown and made room for that other to come forward. It's just what, but so beautiful that you've shared that, and that's becoming something available for you to share, because I know how much one can benefit from sharing, and then the whole group as well.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I really I really resonate with what you've just said. And yeah, I think being creative, you know, like I've talked to Joel before about the whole abstract path, and the beautiful part of this is being able to have the freedom to be creative and not feel, you know, trapped. And, you know, Sarah before was talking about the full moon and how, you know, sometimes she smokes more cannabis, and, you know, it's being okay with like your kind of intense process and having compassion for that, I think is really important. I think in the past I did so much discipline orientated stuff, and it's like it's quite harming. And so just allowing the manifestations of all of the things, you know, some of it's positive, some of it's negative. And luckily I've kind of throughout my life I've approached my, whatever you want to call it, growth, trauma, from a whole lot of different angles. And what seems to be happening at the moment is all of these things that I've built are sort of accumulating. And over the last week, I've just gone through such a massive shift in vitality, and everything's just coming together. And it hasn't been getting rid of those main things that I thought were like, you know, it's been the other approach. It's been like the caring and the adding small things in is allowing me to let go of, some of the things that aren't supportive. So, yeah. So thank you very much, Rachel.
Beautiful. I love that. All the caring and it's my favorite way. Like instead of discipline, it's just tuning in and caring a little more in this realm, and then whew, the magic happens. Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you, brother. Okay. Patrick, welcome.
Hi. Hey, while listening, like a couple of things came up, and I was just wondering, like if you, because I'm trying to understand like the concepts you're speaking, like true, and some of them are like, I know this one. Others are a little bit more like, I don't know, what is she really talking about? What's the experience? And I was just wondering if they have, you talked about the Toltecs. Do they have like a word for universal stories? I was thinking of particularly universal stories that create like an open space, like the way you started the session with the whole grounding and creating like a space with the sun and the roots, and just like making the space more open. And this just like a thought I had, which I was like on the lookout for, like trying to find these universal, like easy ways to create those spaces. Because I'm finding myself more and more in a world where I'm like, because the stories I hear are very much like pick a side or like very hard to join, and it's like really nice listening to, like, for example, Jamie, like having these moments where talking about like the blue lights or the green lights you see when you're a kid and you're just looking at something in the dark, like these sort of uh, memories of like curiosity, which usually opens up this space. Um, and trying to just find ways to open that space more and more, because I spent like such a long time trying to regain that connection after having lost it for many years, and starting all the way like working in kindergartens trying to like bring the connection back, and then realizing that I made like a conscious effort to keep the connection at a certain age, and like retracing back to that part, life simpler, and keeping like things like this thing, which is not very practical, but I had it since I was 1 year old, and like I was thinking about like the reflection of things. Like if you have an object that's been with you when making the first memories, and I just, yeah, I don't know. Today I'm a little, but I have all these thoughts just from listening, and I just wanted to just share that which came up. And for me, with a very like specific meditation, and now it's like coming back, and this is years ago, but this is like specifically just laying down when it's dark, and the jumping to the to the door. Like I guess I've done that a million times. You have periods where it's scary like that, where it's not, and like, yeah, it's like an ebb and flow. I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you, man. That's so cool. Really appreciate you sharing that and asking about these things. There's so much there to go that we can talk about. As far as the Toltecs, they do have abstract cores. They have these magical stories that are for everyone. They're personal, and yet they're not. And it just, the story is simple, that there's spirit is trying to intervene and introduce itself to everyone, and we're just it's just you know, so the abstract stories are about how spirit tries to show each person their power, their gifts, their magic. And it's, you know, in the Castaneda books, it's really well explained and it's really magical, but that access to that world is, you know, a longing that many of us, whether we admit it or not, have, is to be able to access the imagination on that level in which it's activated, and that we're perceiving energy, which is what happens when we do this. So as a kid, I was stopped. I remember being able to do all these things, and then something came in and it stopped it. And I got really pissed. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I remember, and I was trying to tell my parents, and the fact they didn't, you know, even like, it's like speaking Japanese or something to them. There's no able for them to receive my frustration, or I couldn't express it. So you really thank you for keeping your desire for that space. It's not a negative thing that we've been kept from it. It's just what it is. It is what it is. It's the perfect teacher is this thing that's allowed us to discover, have access to it, and then now it's like, okay, now how are you going to get it back? Right. So like it's a really like almost like a parent that abandons you or something, or makes you think you're abandoned. But in reality, it's just offering, you know, the most perfect platform within this, like like the longing to access these things without losing our marbles in the process is not an easy thing. And so we don't want to be reckless or not listen. It's a real, like, so yeah, there is all these cool things in the Castanet material that will teach you how to utilize the darkness to regain access to the infinite. And I've learned some really powerful things that I could do today that would change my life significantly as far as my dreaming consciousness and the regaining of that access. But it doesn't mean that I'm called to necessarily take that step today or even this year or even this decade. I'm listening as to what my being is resilient enough for, honoring what I've learned from watching others advance on this path. So the curiosity, the imagination, the youthful energy, the recapitulation, just being, honoring the process, the slowness, the the healing that happens when you embrace sort of the tortoise energy and really get down on the earth and be in your roots and in your pain as a gauge. And the tenderness is incredible to gain access to. It can be overwhelming though, so we want to honor the things that just we want to have as healthy as distractions as we can. You know, we really want to honor all parts of ourselves. So if our little child wants certain type of focus or attention, if we can, rather than try to beat ourselves up over that, we can listen. So Patrick works with kids, and he's a teacher, and we've talked a little bit in his desire to hold space for children to have source access to their, you know, to something incredible. And so I'm really thankful that there's teachers out there like you, brother. And yeah, it's really cool that you are the way you question and look and what inspires you. And it's a powerful room today. Thank you guys. Gentian, so glad to hear from you.
Hi, it's good here. Now, I was just thinking of sharing a bit in my memory that is basically a big blank. In when I was in my early 20s, my first boyfriend, who had already been on and off with for about 3-4 years by then, and more off than on, because it was too mad, so I went my own way. But at some stage when I was still in my early or mid-20s, I don't even know exactly when, he came back and he attacked me and sort of nearly, what you call that? Strangled me, and he threw all my stuff in the canal. I lived in Holland by the canal, and all my stuff in the canal and stuff. And I don't know, it was a very strange period. I just went to the, obviously you go. I think what I wanted to bring up about it is the assemblage point can just move in something like that, because I was like, I just went along after that. I wasn't judging anything. I basically wasn't reacting. I was just honoring whatever. I don't know what it was, but he then sort of kept me hostage for about voluntary from my side for about 6 months, until I found out that I could just step away. And I went to just my friend who lived a couple of streets away, and I just stayed for a few days, and the whole saga was finished. I never seen him again. But like, it was very, very strange. I've been recapitulating about it, and there's just a big blank. I have no memories of the whole 6 months. Now the few days, of course, I can retell every minute of that. But then the 6 months, basically, that I was in music college then, and he was just following me, sitting beside me in the train, never letting me out of sight, sitting in front of the door, like where my class was. Then I coming out, I had me sitting again, escorting me back to the train. It was just, I've been trying to get into that. I don't know, it feels a little bit as if it's as far away as, the years before 3, when you're 2 or whatever, 1, you put it in a different part, and it's just, I'm very neutral about it, and about him anyway. I've completely, like, I love him. I completely understood him always from the beginning. I just wasn't able, because I wasn't responding or reacting. I was just always just observing. And I don't know. It's just very weird that it's such a blank. So I'm trying to get a bit further in that aspect.
Wow.
Whoa.
Thank
Wow,
you. Thank you for sharing,
you.
Gentian. It's a challenging event to have been through, and I think there's a lot of history with, there's aspects of this that maybe if we leave our bodies, we do all kinds of strange things when these types of traumas that are that deep, and then the assemblage point is, in order for us to leave our bodies or to spend time in that extreme detached state. So you learned a lot about detachment, but you also, that's a type of extreme escapism or avoidance that the assemblage point has to record that information differently, because it's such a, it's your coping. It protected you, what you did, right? Because our system is designed to survive extreme trauma. And so as much as you were already evolved in your detachment, there's some part of you that needed to hide.
Well, yeah, I feel like so many questions right here to ask you, and if you're up for it, is that something that you would be into, just exploring a little more?
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to dive into it, really. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. With what Joel's, before we kind of explore what we think it is, I just would love to offer, some questions around, I mean, for Joel, because I'm curious what Joel thinks about this or feels, and just as far as like what's the assemblage point, where is that in the nervous system? We're crossing over certain types of psychological um information with Toltec information with all these things, and then this Germanic medicine also pops into my field around shock and what that is, and dissociation, and as far as how, like, what skills were there for you? Was it simply dissociation and you went numb and in shock, or were you more developed as far as like, were you aware that maybe you were going into shock, or were you aware of that maybe it wasn't shock, or a combination? These are kind of a lot of questions all at once, but just kind of exploring with you.
I don't know how much awareness there was of the shock now. Let me see. It's I also cut out all help basically, but I wasn't looking for help. So I don't know what that type of thing is. I don't know. Maybe it's just a very good skill of making yourself invisible or something.
Yeah.
Survival.
Yeah, that piece that I was speaking of earlier, what our nervous system beautifully does, like, we're very skillful. Some experiences, could be overwhelming. We go into shock and we aren't able to recover. So, whatever your system did, you were able to recover and live a life. And it's like, now you're like, this is a chunk of my life that I don't remember, and there's questions probably there. Um i i have, with a lot of what's being shared, especially Sarah brought this up in the beginning, I was so loving that I was able to co-facilitate a soul retrieval, like a shamanic soul retrieval, like pretty traditional, with the shaman, and that Joel and I know. And um, I've been doing some more studying and research about that. And so, as a lot of you, and with this, what is soul loss? What is, like, soul retrieval, as far as, and then in comparison with recapitulation and spirits of trauma. And I just wanted to say, like, with Jamie as well, something that is changing in my perception, that feels good to me, that kind of has become more of my truth, which is that we actually never really lose ourselves. Like, we are, it may be that it's in our field, kind of lost here, and it hasn't fully assembled or remembered, or we haven't felt the scope of the shock or the victim, right? But that doesn't mean that piece of us, that piece of our innocence and our loving child, our youth, is like gone, and we need to retrieve it way out here. To me, I feel like it feels like it's gone from us, and there's grief around that. But I really feel like the grief actually shows us that it's right here with us. And the grief is it being so absolutely right here, but we're not feeling that it is. And so that the retrieval is actually just remembering that's actually the piece that is just wanting to be acknowledged and brought in a little closer to the heart. And I don't know, this isn't specific. It just felt like coming through. Yeah.
It's the integration of every event, right? The recapitulation, however it happens, it can happen naturally through, like, the ghost of Christmas past, or different ways in which we review our lives and have understandings, right? So you may have been this man may have had the capacity to warlock your assemblage point. He was able to scare you enough and run enough attention into your field that he gained a command over your world that was keeping pressure. Like sorcery is intense, and when you encounter power dynamics that play out between men and women, you went into survival mode, but that doesn't mean you were, it created a pattern, right? That is eventually your being would be able to feel. I've experienced being warlocked by powerful people where I didn't have command over my decisions or even my body.
Your will.
And it's a very uncomfortable experience, and it's terrifying to realize that that can happen. But it's also part of becoming aware of how this is a world of power. And I'm not trying to project this into your memory or suggest that's what happened. But the assemblage point is a strange thing, and people that have these extra compartments of energy have access to people, hypnotists, and different beings out there that, are very different than they've accessed some things. So sometimes that gets passed on to people through lineages or family lines. But just the fact that that all happened, that both of you crossed a line, both of you crossed a threshold. You moved into uncharted territory in the realm of power over one, right? Where it leaves an imprint. It moved your perception to such an intense place that it took you 6 months to come out of it. And then all of a sudden it's just like poof, like what happened, right? So I've seen that. My friend went to court, and the court, all the jury, they started asking him questions, and they had a like he just got overwhelmed, and he basically aligned with everyone else's perception of what happened, and he couldn't speak for himself. He became mute. It's just strange what can happen to us in under incredible pressures and trauma. So thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, if you want to talk further, and we're open to this being a further talk. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a lot. Thank you for sharing. Oh. And it's interesting. So the fact that you were held here, and then to be a chantress, to be able to 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 utilize your voice in the way that you do, these extremes that show up in our lives sometimes. It's like we pay a price for the gifts because the wound keeps us humble. Um, it's just a strange world we're in for sure. So appreciate you sharing, Jantian.
Yeah, that was my, I don't, that's one thing that Joel passed on to me, that you had that gift, and it's so lovely to meet you, and I'm so curious about that story. That was one of the things that first came in. How can that be and this be, at the same time, and yet it's almost, yeah, tells a story of its own there. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's amazing, you guys. Really appreciate you feeling comfortable to share, and yeah, it's just a really cool community. More people have shown up recently, and I've been meeting a lot of folks, and I look forward to, yeah, more opportunities, more community meetings. Wanted to go back to the chats actually, with the owls. Owls are known as symbols from Julianne. Owls are known as symbols of wisdom and knowledge, often viewed as messengers between human beings and spiritual worlds. I'm not sure if messages are supported in the meeting. I don't mean to overstep. Yeah. I can see your energy blockages knocking you to the ground, trying to get your attention. I love
welcomed.
I love owls. I had an intense meeting with an owl where it came and sat next to me for almost an hour, just sitting next to me. It was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. Oh, Janet, that's beautiful. A beautiful, powerful, intelligent human design. Yeah. yeah, our magical contracts and assignments and appointments with knowledge and everybody we meet and everything we experience here. Jamie.
Yeah, I actually just had a question. I've sort of just been getting into some of the material around is it Manuel? Silvio
Yeah.
Manuel? Yeah, and I've just found quite a nice resonance with him, and yeah, just really interesting to kind of read about how he was like uh the kind of intent, or like if I'm understanding it right, the intent behind Don Juan, or he made his intent available to Don Juan, and just the story about how his relationship with darkness and the night. And it just reminded me of the periods that I spent, long periods in sleep deprivation, and whether that was something that he was practicing um, going into the nighttime. Like my interpretation of it was that, like, once the night came, he sort of stepped into his power and his being. And from my interpretation, it's sort of like once it was nighttime, he was dreaming awake and in his second attention. Um, and yeah, so was that true? And through the way that he was permanently in that second attention, he was able to be dreaming awake without the normal physical ailments that would come with like sleep deprivation and these sorts of things. Sorry, it's a little bit of a layered question here.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, brother. So these powerful beings, and especially him, because of what happened, he became the man of intent for the sorcery party. Um, in that he was swallowed, he allowed himself to be fully swallowed by the darkness, and he became one with it. Maybe because he is a westerly sorcerer, he came from the West, and the West is a very it has a totally different access than the other directions. It's a very difficult one to be able to utilize. Um, and yeah, his capacity, and not only him, but other members of that sorcery group they didn't need to use sleep deprivation in order to access that place. But you can rest assured they all explored what you experienced, all kinds of purification processes, fasting, getting to know the body, getting to know what it's like to go without sleep for long periods of time. But they could rest in a way that didn't require going to sleep as well, right? So you can learn to stay awake for days and weeks, but still get just as much rest as if you were sleeping at a certain stage, or like even you can have experiences that just are timeless, or where time changes. Like Carlos went into a cave with Don Juan, and he experienced it as a 2-day experience. He came out, it was 11 days later. So in certain states of attention, which Silvio Manuel has mastered, so it's incomprehensible to us what that person's experiencing day and night, right? These beings are traveling in other worlds. They're walking in and out of this world at will. They fill their home and their lives with everything is had to become they've had to live in impeccability that's incomprehensible to us, and how distracted and under influence we still are. But I'm not trying to be these guys or suggest that we do so. I'm just pointing out they were all tricked and manipulated in order to gain access to these extreme capacities. We can be drawn to the ability. Like, I use the darkness to do darkroom gazing, and the more comfortable with it, the more abstract I become. So the tools are available to us, and eventually it's going to accumulate if we continue to show up, and we will get to know or have glimpses of what people like that have been doing. And because of what they got to do, it's kind of like the Inception. They could go into worlds that last thousands of years, right? So time is no longer a thing. It's just you end up going from vision to vision to vision, and they're just as real as this dream. But what Carlos said and what Silvio Manuel referenced is that this place is where it's at. There's no need to go to these other places. You can fill your home with the most incredible energy, and you can go, you don't, like, so the material world becomes a distraction for these people. Like Florinda had an apartment that was just empty and a sleeping bag because she wanted to bring the jungle in. She'd spent so much time in the jungle, so she brought the jungle into her apartment by having a barren, empty field in which to fill all that energy with. So to go visit her would be like going into the Amazon, as far as the intensity of the energy that she had brought home with her. So glad that you're not afraid. Like a lot of people have they fear Silvio Manuel because of the way Carlos feared him, but he was just a mirror, so pure of a mirror, right? That he would be a terrifying person to encounter, but deep down, these are very joyous, beautiful, hilarious people, especially the Westerly witches that he lived with. They were just absolutely unhinged, and they didn't care. They were free to fully express their wildness and their fierceness as females. So he was the only one empty enough to handle being around witches that would do anything and everything with the slightest prompt, right? They were like actresses, that move beyond acting, right? When you're in a full expression of your power, then theater becomes everything because the world is theater.
Was that, like, in a way, like a reflection of his Silvio Manuel's relationship with the second attention and the dreaming world, because that's a feminine world? Was it the ability for him to deal with those women and all their dimensions, and at times their kind of madness and things? Is that a reflection of his ability to deal with that second attention and that dreaming world and that larger uh, energy in a way? I don't know if I'm explaining that right.
Well, so yeah, shamans eventually they go and find tyrants to test their buttons so that they can handle the second attention, because tyrants prepare you. And then those women ended up being like tyrants as well. They were testing Silvio Manuel to see if he's truly empty or not. And as women, they have an advantage over him. So they created Silvio Manuel. Right?
Because I
Sorry.
I was going to say, I noticed with the like the sleep deprivation stuff, the thing that made it work was getting out of the mind. And so that I realized, if you can fully go out of the mind and be in these other states, the exhaustion that you usually get from being in the mind and not sleeping and relaxing that part of you is, yeah, that's what exhausts us. So actually being in these other states is like energizing rather than exhausting. And so there were times that I would spend like 8 hours, of the night, and I would just be doing really simple ceremonies with different plants, flowers, aspects of nature, and it would feel like it was an hour. But 9 hours would pass, and you wouldn't feel exhausted. So I guess my question was also around, you know, um, that energy balance, or that energy preservation through not being in the analytical mind, the kind of the worldly mind, and how that dictates, our energy flow and need for rest.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is what eventually, it's amazing what you discovered, and we are vital. You often reference you were flying back then. That was your time when you were flying, because
Mm.
you were floating, man. You discovered that we don't have to behave like everybody else. So there's a much more efficient, energetic ways to experience our vitality and get to know it. But it's hard to integrate. It's hard to have those experiences and then, you know, find a way to be that way and still be of the world. And so we end up kind of integrating what happened, and then that's why I like the Toltec system, is the movements combined with the recapitulation and then the dreaming gates, is that you don't have to do extreme things like sleep deprivation or test the limits to that degree, because it is ungrounding.
Mm.
um and so the more ungrounded we get, the more, or the lighter we get, the more grounded we need to be. Otherwise it would be just kind of really risky, that instead of realistic and pragmatic. Some people
Yeah,
get away.
I'm noticing small, like I'm able to have a mix of experiences from that time, but in smaller, more manageable, balanced experiences, and I feel that's the integrations. There are times where I do feel that energy, completely come back, and I'm in that space again, but I'm able to shift out of it, quite easily, rather than being in it for weeks or months.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You've
Mm.
gained, when the assemblage point moves to certain places, then it's available.
Is that
Every
what they call the is it like an indentation? They describe it as like a groove or an indentation. So like when you go back to that point, it settles.
Yeah,
Um, Whereas when you're first exploring that particular state of perception, it's like it hasn't got a comfortable, stable place for it to sit.
totally. Yeah, there's a variety of things around indentations around the luminous cocoon, or like getting the assemblage point to learn, like Carlos would say, or Don Juan said, you're gonna have to find another place to live. And he didn't mean another home, he meant another perception to occupy. So you learn
Mm.
to, the more times you spend in these place of silent knowledge, the more that position of perception becomes entrenched and accessible, because it's like a divot. It can drop in. But yeah, when it's fresh and new, there's nothing to drop into yet. So you kind of it's like a fisherman casting their net out to sea, and then wherever your assemblage point is going to move and reveal new things. It's not meant to just get fixated to a position. I mean, it's both, right? The movement and then being able to stay in a particular location to learn as much from that unique experience. And that's what recapitulation does. It takes you back to a memory in which your assemblage point was in a unique state. The reason it's hard to get to the stuff from 0 to 4 or 0 to 5 is that our assemblage point was freely moving back then.
Mm.
And so there's a path of freedom in that respect, that we somehow integrate everything that's happened, get to know our wounding as a reference for humanity, manifest, or find our path of heart, what does it for us in this life, and then courageously, you know, get curious about how our youthful energy might want to return to us, and then that unique guidance that will come, because we're not copying a system, we're just utilizing a whole vast energetic realm of possibility just by opening up to these types of conversations.
Mm. Yeah, and I know some of those characters, in the Carlos Castaneda material are the extremes, of these sorts of things. But I find it refreshing because it does give that fun, element, and they do break up, this very intense stuff into, fun, you know, they make fun of everything. And so I think that's a really powerful way that, you know, we are getting back to our, you know, our younger aspects is through this more fun, joking, you know, being able to be a bit loose about it rather than this monastic religious way of dealing with things. So yeah, thanks Joel for all that sharing. Cheers.
Yeah, I love that you brought that in at the end. I was feeling that too. My child was like, yeah, all of what Joel and you were saying without having goals or like trying, and you know, the things of how we were when we were a child. I mean, did we have goals when we were a child? It no, like we just existed in this magical world. I mean, we had different childhoods, all of us, but we had more access to that of what you're talking about. And I feel like, yeah, it's not all just access our child. When Joel and I speak, I speak frequently in my courses about you know, like conscious feminine, conscious masculine energies that we're tapping into, you know, from the sun and the earth, and that being supportive. It's really not separate, it's together, it's this dance. But when we kind of look at the different properties and sensations that we have in our body, it's like the masculine is that focus, but it's not necessarily goal oriented in the traditional way. The patriarch and the masculine unconscious or, you know, unhealthy ways we were taught in that system how to you know, be successful, be busy, be productive. We've related kind of focus with that. But how powerful is a focused child when a child places its focus? So, and then the child being more the representation of the feminine and the creative and the yeah, receptivity. So just ways of talking about things, really. But yeah, thanks for inspiring that, Jamie.
Awesome. Wow, thank you guys. I'm gonna read from Marine here real quick. Thank you both for this time to talk and share. Powerful and mystical owl has visited us here on our land and a couple of times. Been looking for the right teachings. It's all very amazing. I want to become free and wild and love without boundaries. What is that like? Not to worry about this, that, and the other. Oh, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And then I think a response was from Julianne. I share from my personal experiences. Go outside in a quiet place and ground. Close your eyes and focus on breath. Let go of the attachment to be human. Let go of the mind and drop into the heart. Feel the beautiful winds that flow without resistance. Allow your consciousness to join the winds, eventually becoming the winds. Flow, trust, love, just be. This is what it's like for me, but I am you and you are me. Blessings and love. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Beautiful shares.
Yeah, it's so good to receive these incredible feelings and connect, share words and faces. Really appreciate everybody for showing up, and look forward to further talks in the future.
Yeah, I did want to mention, if anyone is curious about the traditional soul retrieval, I like to speak about it as retrieving soul essence. But yeah, if you're curious, that's something that I'm doing more of now, and I'm looking forward to doing more in the future, just seeing how effective it's been for our family personally, and then also for clients as well. So the shaman that we work with is in the Seattle area. So yeah, if you want to talk more about it, or if you're curious, please feel free to reach out. Yeah, and I guess, do we talk a little bit more? We're not good at marketing this stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we
Joel's
try to
better at
keep it just, you know, like irreverent and fun. So, but we'd love, if you feel called, this will be a powerful opportunity. Being our first time doing this, there's going to be a blueprint that's established around what we've been guided for many years to offer. And so it's exciting. We'd love your support, and we'd also love for you to be there if you feel comfortable and called to working through some some strong feelings, but some really, you know, when we show up for these things, there's a shift in our life that's reflected. So it's just a listening thing. If your body feels ready to experience these types of inner journeys with memory, follow that feeling and reach out if you have any questions. It's gonna, for those of you that are coming in September, it'd be great to be in this fold as we build up toward that. Really looking forward to being in person. So, but either way,
yeah, and we have in our first in-person together offering as well, coming up here in September pretty quick. So those are the things we have going on. I also have not announced this really publicly. The 9-month course is finishing that I've been so blessed to be a part of in the last 9 months with the women that have joined me. And so I'm announcing it to others. There's room here in Montana on the tail end of Joel's workshop and offering. So it's for women. It's sexual awakening for the heart. Definitely we've been in this 9-month course, exploring what that actually is. So the innocence of sexuality before the belief systems had gotten attached to our natural vital life force, which is definitely our sexuality, and how much we bypass over that or utilize that with hypersensitivity. There's different ways. And yeah, so I'm opening it up to women that are interested. There's a few spots left, and there's some women that are still deciding from our course. So it'll just be who is called. And like one of our amazing Native American elder Cherokee teachers always said to us, until it's a yes, it's a no. So explore with your yeses and nos and your sensations around not just our offerings, but whatever surfaces in your life, and feel into that guidance. It can get so specific and so non-specific as well at times. So enjoy that process. And yeah. Anything else?
That's pretty much it. Yeah. Feel free to reach out. We both do free consults for anybody that's new to what we're offering. We'd love to connect and offer. A lot can happen in 30 minutes. It's not necessarily something you have to continue with. It's just we like to meet people, learn so much from each story. And it's just been a real honor to have you and others come into our lives, and we're really thankful. So really hope that you have an amazing day. Take this kind of energetic experience and allow it to wash over you. And yeah, really just we in my course we talk about learning to be a wolf pack and learn to receive support as well as extend it, because it's really powerful to learn to receive help and also to be able to be in a state of really being receptive to other people's experiences, feelings, and messaging. So it's really good to be with all of you. Cool.
Got it.
Janet, thank you.
Got it, honey.
Yeah. Much love, everybody. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Oh, confetti, feeling that.
Awesome. Cool.
Beautiful. Thanks for all you've contributed here. Yeah, much love and peace. Natalia, I love you.
Yes.
All right,
Awesome.
take good care.
Okay, see you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.